3 in this event. Let's get the lower bracket finals underway with this first draft.
All right, Tomb of the Spider Queen, a very small map. Complexity is opting to ban out Jaina. They want to leave melee assassins open, but Kerrigan, McIntyre's not going to get her.
Not at all. McIntyre has just made such a name for himself as that melee assassin of Complexity. And how many times has Kerrigan been banned up against him today? We've had one match, I think, with he was Kerrigan. Everything else has been a ban.
Yeah, that one map was actually particularly devastating. So I think a lot of the teams learned their lessons in terms of making sure that Complexity does not get this hero in particular. And, you know, I think it's a very, very smart call. Complexity will follow this up with an Illidan. They say, oh, you're going to take one melee assassin away. We'll grab another. That, of course, being Illidan.
Yeah, and he's just such a powerful hero, but they do snipe the Abathur. This should be Zeratul with it. Ooh, Sylvanas. They're saying, you know what? We don't need to prioritize Zeratul because you already have a single melee assassin. Very uncommon to see a team run with 2.
Oh, so Complexity, if they're not keen on facing up against Zeratul, that's going to have to be their second ban, because after we come out of double bans, Cloud9 Maelstrom has their first pick.
Right.
Very, very good points, and I think that, you know, the Zeratul should be something that they're keeping a very close eye on. Of course, the battleground is Tomb of the Spider Queen, so we see the Johanna sort of preemptive pick, and they're sort of threatening the Azmodan pickup that can go so very well. We've seen that time and time again on this map in particular today.
Will that warrant a ban right here from Maelstrom, or will they go for a Brightwing? Very likely they want to keep that Brightwing to themselves, and it will be the Dunkmaster out of this fight.
Yeah, I think that's just really smart. The AoE potential with Azmodan, we've seen just how it's powerful he can be on any map. Taking him out is nice, but Muradin going to be the ban from Complexity Gaming.
That's interesting. I think I really would have put a lot of priority in terms of taking Zeratul out, so we'll have to see how this ends up playing out for them.
So Zeratul and Nubarak kind of coming in. If it's not a Nubarak, we have seen ETC, we have seen Arthas coming in here as well.
Okay, but it's not going to be the case just yet. We do have Cloud9 Maelstrom picking up the Brightwing and the Nubarak, like you mentioned. Good call, Jester, and that's going to round out 4 of their 5 members of their roster.
And once more, Brightwing Tacet are split up. And with the Azmodan ban, we're not going to see anything more than 2 promotes into this game.
Right.
Very likely we're not going to see any of those other characters with the third one. But Falstad, Jake, he has been played a heck of a lot this weekend.
He has. Falstad picking up a lot of steam, a very safe hero, a very diverse kit, and Rhaegar going to round out the composition for Complexity. Honestly, though, Cloud9 Maelstrom, they still have the option for Zeratul, but they go for Kael'thas.
They let it go. They let it go.
No, please. Guys, don't do this to me right now. I can't handle this. Okay, so that is going to round out the composition for both teams, hopping into game number 1 of the lower bracket match. But first, we need to hear about what you guys have to say about that previous match. Of course, it was really exciting. Follow us at Blizz Heroes and use the hashtag HeroesWC. We know that was an exciting match, but we want to hear how excited you guys are for the remainder of these matches today.
Oh, but game number 1 of the loser finals, the lower finals, is underway between Cloud9 Maelstrom and Complexity. On the blue side, that is Cloud9 with K1 Pro, Caffeine, Dunktrain, Biceps, and iDream.
And over on the right side of the map, these guys just took a very close series against their sister team, Cloud9 Vortex. We are going to have Complexity playing for them. We have Hans on Tassadar. Cattlepillar is going to be playing the Johanna. McIntyre on the Illidan. Trummel will be playing Falstad. In the bottom of the map, we do have Blinks is going to be playing Rhaegar.
All right, the wolf life, the orc life of Rhaegar is underway. We do see it is only level 1 right now, just a lot of posturing. Both teams, they want to play very passively. If you find someone out of position, great. Otherwise, you're just going to stick to your norms.
Okay, so in terms of talents, we do see that Brightwing has picked up the scouting drone. Of course, we have to sort of beat this down. That is that the vision is so important on this map in particular, especially you can see the vents that sort of lead in from the middle lane entrances to these turn-in points, and it's just really good to have control and vision of these areas.
Yeah, that's just one of the cool things about that hero. We saw how clutch he could be on a map like Sky Temple, utilizing Mule, utilizing those locusts across the map. In here, there's an emphasis on vision, utilizing the mines. Very unique hero, and the specialists and Heroes of the Storm just provide a massive dynamic to the different styles that can exist.
All right, Jake, you are the self-proclaimed support master, in particular Rhaegar. We do see that the healing ward, I guess in this case the healing totem, has been grabbed for Rhaegar at level 1, if I am not mistaken. How do you feel about that?
His current level 1 options aren't the best. Now, healing ward did receive a massive nerf, but I still think it's probably the best option on him. Typically, we might see something like Colossal Totem used, which isn't bad for control on the map, but there aren't really a ton of huge synergies that are necessary. Pair it with Condemn, can be good, but Healing Ward can get you through those battles and just flat out win team fights.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we do see quite a few changes to that ability, so now the AoEs are going to be able to take it down, but it just sort of forces a good bit more positioning on the ability, and sometimes we see it thrown in the backline as sort of a safe haven that teams will move back into, and it's not really picked all that often these days, but I have seen some very nice uses of it as of late.
It definitely, yeah, again, it just prevents you from having to go back to base so often, especially in a map as aggressive as this. I do like the pickup. A Caffeine in the front there, just taking up the damage, throwing down his beetles, being a bug in general. He's actually a ladybug today. So stylish.
Oh my goodness, yes, filling out the bug theme, as you mentioned. And we have so many bugs with the Avatar as well. Very, very fun to see some of these extra skins that are going to be on these heroes as well.
All right, well, the gems are being collected. We see 6 have been turned in on the side of compLexity. Level 4 reached for both teams at this point in time. What kind of talents are we seeing now?
Yeah, so let's hop into a promote on either side for Tassadar and Brightwing, like was alluded to during the draft. Actually, I think we saw this a little bit earlier, but the Gravity Lift upgrade at level 4 was picked up for Kael'thas. Jake, what do you make of that?
Now, this is actually something I like a lot in this map because the combos that you can get, the reduced cooldown for that Gravity Lift, can really just be devastating. You pair that with Anubarak hitting 3 targets, you can then use Verdant Spheres to spec into the Gravity Lift, lifting 3 targets as well. That lockdown is so long, and if you allow just the damage to come out from the rest of your team, it's not fun.
But is it worth giving up?
It's tough.
Gathering power.
You're talking gathering power. You're talking additional ability power for all of your abilities. But the thing is, this is a small map where you might be falling more often than other maps. It's very aggressive. Of course, if you are taken down in battle, you lose your gathering power stack. So maybe it's just kind of the risk-reward isn't there for gathering power.
Sure, okay, I buy that. I'll go with that. Okay, so we do have the Avatar build as well. We want to highlight the differences between the build thus far from what we saw last game. Last game was very much structure-oriented, push-oriented. Thus far, we are seeing the symbiote upgrades, the pressurized glands at level 1, and of course the adrenal overload at level 4 to get that attack speed increase.
And that's so powerful. You throw that on any hero, whether it be Brightwing or Sylvanas, it improves their damage output, and it's just nice to have the additional auto attacks. We see Zeratul, or excuse me, Illidan, diving on in to that Brightwing in the bottom lane, just going to force them back, utilizing the Hat of Avatar.
Okay, so again, name of the game is about the control over these 2 turn-in locations. I'm seeing that we have probably about 20, no, actually quite a few more for Cloud9 Maelstrom at this point. So they have more than enough to get a turn-in. They just need control over those coffers so that they can channel enough time to do that, but they're actually getting very aggressive structurally.
Yeah, I mean, the ammunition is starting to get quite low, but this aggression might just be a little bit too much. The rotation here, Burrow Charge still available on Caffeine. He's saving it as long as he possibly can. Gonna have to use it now.
Wow.
Is it enough? The shielding comes out from Avatar. The heals won't be there, but it's gonna be just barely enough for him to survive.
That is why Caffeine is one of the best warriors in NA. He really knew how to push the envelope in terms of how much HP Bully had remaining, waiting for that extra Avatar shield. Got the Pixie Dust from Dunktrain. We saw that support really just getting right within range, but he knew he put himself within a little corridor that he could make full use of the Impale, stunning out all of the remaining members of the team. Really, really well played.
Yeah, but the Condemn goes down. iDream being body blocked by everything. Gonna end up falling. Illidan is just on a rampage right now with the Condemn, hitting 3 targets once more. The Avatar Hat not gonna be enough this time, and quite a few gems go down. Keiwan Pro wants to collect them, uses the Haunting Wave to get back on out.
Really cheeky little play there. That was cool, but of course, keeping those gems and trying to secure the gems that are on your fallen comrades. They just sort of splatter to the ground nearby after you are taken down. So it's important to make sure you keep the collection of those, and we do see that there is, a handful on Keiwan Pro at this point, but it's a risk, right? We saw that he was almost taken down at that point, just really just, pushing the edge in terms of what his hero is capable of.
I would go as far to say it was a truly outrageous risk, but he did manage to get out, and we do see that the Web Weavers have been summoned on the blue side of the map. Cloud9 Maelstrom, although they lost 2 heroes in that last battle, they do in fact have the advantage when it comes to map control.
Yes, the Web Weavers have been summoned on Cloud9's side at this point, so really just showing thus far, at least in the early game, they know how to keep that control, although they have had a few takedowns thus far. You can sort of feel that presence in terms of how they've been rotating around.
And they're making that big rotation into the bottom lane. We see just a ton of presence from Cloud9. They want to escort that Web Weaver. We have the Anubarak in the middle of the vents there as a flank, to prevent the flanks rather. And Trummel, McIntyre, going to be more than enough to clean this guy up.
So a lot of sustain has been grabbed for Anubarak at this point. We do see the Regen Master and the Leeching Scarabs picked up at level 7, the extra beetle that spawns every 8 seconds. So really just trying to make sure KingCaffeine stays alive in a lot of these engagements. Seems to be strong talent choices.
All right, well, the coffers are available once more, and only a single gem is needed for complexity to get Web Reavers of their own. Level 10, very close for both teams. Cloud9 Maelstrom, if they get it first, I expect them to get very aggressive.
Okay, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. Wow, look at this. McIntyre finding himself with 31 gems. Of course, he'll only be able to turn in one of those at the point, so he's going to be very fragile, and he can't drop those. We do see the Hunting Wave that was tossed out. It was not going to be in time, and the one gem was turned in. This will give complexity their own opportunity to provide some counter pressure.
Yeah, but look at this. Dunktrain in the bottom lane just split pushing as Brightwing did manage to remove the bottom fort. So that's actually a pretty big win. Level 10 has been reached. What are the heroics for both teams?
Okay, for Cloud9, we do have the Blink Heal, the Wailing Arrow, the Phoenix, the of course, the Locust Swarm for KingCaffeine on Anubarak there to make sure he can keep himself alive. And I believe that Biceps has gone for the Evolve Monstrosity.
Ooh, interesting. All right, well, we do see the hat right now keeping Caffeine alive. The Hinterlane's Blast will not connect the Burrow Charge. Perfectly timed, but Dunktrain does have the Blink Heal, the Wailing Arrow, and the Impale. Ancestral, though, is going to keep McIntyre nice and healthy, restoring that entire health bar.
No, Catto has to be careful. His HP pool is quite low, and we might see the counter aggression from the remaining members of Cloud9 Maelstrom. We see the iDream just continually throwing out those flame strikes. Are going to be a very good tool to ward off the remaining members of complexity, but they will be able to get this fort in the mid lane.
Yeah, they're pushing them back, but the fort goes down. So nicely done by complexity. Tons of heroics were used in that battle, and the Web Reavers just about expired in both lanes. Bottom one, just barely standing.
That's right. But we didn't get a chance to talk about the other side of heroics. These guys are just way too aggressive for us. We do have, of course, the Metamorphosis for Illidan. We do have the Blessed Shield, the Archon, the Ancestral Healing, and of course, the Hinterlands Blast.
So much damage output when you get the Hinterlands Blast on multiple enemies. It's so devastating. We see a lot of gems being collected there by Dunktrain. 55 needed for both teams. 8 seconds once you can turn them in again. And it's just, that's the name of the game right now, collect gems.
It sure is, but now that these heroics have been available, we might see these teams get a little bit more aggressive with each other, trying to keep control over this middle turning point. But hold on a second, quite a few gems turned in for complexity. I know, right?
Uncontested.
You just looked away for a second and boom.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what happened to Cloud9. They looked away for one moment. They said, yeah, let's push out this bottom lane. Well, complexity saw that happening, and they just took advantage of that, getting Web Weavers once more. Yeah. Now this gives them a bit of momentum. They are slightly behind in experience, but in the grand scheme of things, this should put them towards level 13.
Right, and that's why vision control is so important on this map in particular. And, you know, we see the pickups of the scouting drones, etc. And it's just because, right, if you look away for a second, you don't have vision of those turning points for just a moment. The team can take any kind of use of that and really get those turning points.
Well, the fall set is flying in. Hans got quite low. The Blessed Shield going down onto Keiwan Pro, and he is going to go down early in this battlefield. The Ancestral Healing on McIntyre will signal a ton of aggression. Dunktrain is in a terrible position here.
Wow, okay, we already have 2 takedowns available. McIntyre making use of the Metamorphosis, and KingCaffeine might actually get stunned out enough. He wasn't able to make use of that Burrow Charge to get out, and this is going to be a huge cleanup. A lot of gems were spilled on Maelstrom's side of the map that won't able to be collected. We do have the Web Weavers pushing. This is a huge turnaround for complexity.
Yeah, they're bleeding experience and they're bleeding gems across the map right now. Right, complexity is getting so aggressive. Top fortifications completely knocked down. Only the keep remaining in this lane, and with the Web Weavers marching down that middle lane with mercenaries, oh, the damage is just going down.
That's right, and we do also have a Shrink Ray picked up instead of some of the more common picks, probably the Prescience at level 13 for Tassadar. So just really looking to try to take down some of the more common damage outputs.
Yeah, that's really just to help out Illidan get the maximum damage. You lock those targets down, they just cannot get away. It assists him in a lot of different ways. Also the Archon, it just pairs well. Very aggressive style in Tassadar.
Sometimes we also see that paired with Second Strike at level 16, so they might actually pick up the ability to cast another Psystorm within a couple seconds after casting the first, and that's just so much more damage because he does bonus damage to any enemy or heroes that are cast like within that Psystorm. You do bonus auto attack damage.
All right, well, it's 14-13, even talent footing right now, but not quite much in terms of that level. Nearly a level lead in favor of complexity after that amazing team fight just a bit ago, and they're continuing to push in with these Giants in the bottom lane.
Perhaps a bit more of a late game oriented composition for Maelstrom, especially with the addition of Kael'thas on the team. We do see the range on the Flame Strike picked up the Flamethrower, and that will very likely be paired with the Ignite at level 16, and it makes for such a strong poke tool later on in the game.
Look at how strong this monstrosity is. I mean, Trummel is doing his best to chase it down. It heals up rather rapidly, but the damage going out, I mean, Trummel took so much hurt.
Yeah, and he's just also spending a lot of time.
Yeah.
That's the big deal. He actually manages to keep the monstrosity alive, which doesn't actually expire at any point. Many patches ago, it did have a timed duration, but now as long as you're able to control it, keep it alive, we can see that the symbiote hat is on top of it for the time being, which does allow Abther to control that monstrosity.
It will end up going down there from Trummel's Fall. So 27 gems being turned in at the moment. Blinks is there with the heals. That's going to be more Web Weavers on the side of compLexity. They have just had an onslaught of aggression in all 3 lanes.
Talking about aggression, we see that McIntyre really starting to lay the heat down onto Cloud9 once again. He seems to be sort of very much a problem child that Maelstrom has been having to deal with. And there isn't, I mean, aside from the Ancestral Healing, but there's like no Divine Shield. There's no like really super aggressive. And it makes it so that it's very difficult to keep up with him in terms of support. So really kudos to Blinks in terms of being able to have very on-point Ancestral Healings.
Yeah, they've been, like you said, on point. The best way to put it in this match. compLexity, half a level from 16, getting that talent advantage. That's when they're really going to spike in their aggression, but they have no reason not to siege up this middle lane with all of these Web Weavers.
Look how different this game is thus far, though, I have to say. This is very different than what we saw in the upper bracket of their matches yesterday. compLexity looked like a completely different team there. Completely maybe like deflated is the best way to put it, but at this point, they have so much momentum riding forward through this lower bracket, and it seems to be paying dividends. They find themselves with a level advantage, even a talent tier advantage.
I would go as far to say they sat down last night and studied those replays where they lost the games time and time again. The aggression in this bottom lane, those towers are falling so rapidly. The experience very much in favor of compLexity. They do have the 16 talent tier, and they want to fight now.
It kind of seems like Cloud9, maybe they're caught off guard a little bit by this this pressure that's been being put forward. Like we mentioned, the level 16 has been grabbed. That is 2 blood for bloods, something to keep in mind if you see someone's HP pool just very quickly get chunked away. Perhaps it may be going on to KingCaffeine, as it is a percentage of their HP, so very valuable on the Warriors.
It really is. I mean, 15% and a slow on top of it. You steal it for yourself. It's a massive ability, but level 16 almost reached by Cloud9 Maelstrom. That's going to give the Ignite to Kael'thas, more power on the rest of the heroes. That's when they're really going to spike. I mean, those long drawn-out fights where they can chip at each other, very favorable for Kael'thas in general.
For sure. Looks as though members of compLexity are moving up to the boss golem in the upper side of the map, and they will start this. But does Cloud9 get wind of this? If they do, this is aptly named the Throw Pit. And as you can see, there's a very tight corridor, and it makes it for a very scary defense if you get aggressed upon. We see Cloud9 is posturing just outside of those vents.
Kubi, is this a bait? We saw this happen yesterday. Illidan was fighting the boss, and a massive metamorphosis and went down as a bait. We see the Flame Strike doing massive damage. Trummel is getting quite low in the bottom portion of the screen here. They did manage to force him off the boss, which has now leashed and healed up to full. But again, those ignites, time and time again, the explosions going off, dealing massive damage to compLexity.
Right, just like I mentioned, it's a great amount of poke, and the longer these fights go on, and you can see it doesn't really do a lot draining Kael'thas' mana pool very much. He can sit there and do this all day.
Yeah, and he would love to. His numbers are going to look great. He's going to finish the game and be like, man, look how much more damage I did than the rest of my team.
Yes, that is clearly the metric that all of these teams are using to make sure that these team members are staying in line. It's like, well, you're Assassin player. Did you do enough damage? Of course, we are joking. It is, of course, making sure that you're timing those abilities with the rest of your team. Heroes of the Storm, much more of a team-based game than we're probably used to seeing with other games of similar genre.
Oh, yeah. It's all about the execution with your allies. And we see Trummel is getting very low to that monstrosity in the bottom right corner of the map. Falstad did have to back on out. McIntyre is going to go down to the monstrosity, try to clean it up, but it's quite well fed. It does soak up minions throughout the game, and he will succeed in cleaning it up.
McIntyre saying, tag me in, coach. I can take this guy out. I see your HP pool got pretty low. But really what that comes down to is a lot of resources being spent. Just time away from the rest of your team, especially when we're getting later into the game. You know, we're at the 15-minute mark. Roaming around, or not really roaming around, but having to split heroes off just to deal with things like split pushes, etc. It's risky.
And that bought them enough time to turn in enough gems for more Web Weavers. So using your heroic to buy their attention like that, more than even worse, I would say. We do see the Impale going down. KingCaffeine a bit by himself. He does have Burrow Charge. The After Hat will assist him in dealing a bit of damage. Phoenix has been used, going down, starting to wheel away on Trummel, but that is a big silence. A heroic going down, healing up Johanna. McIntyre won't get the heal because it was used already, but Dunktrain, will he get out? No! The final blast comes out, eliminating him, and Trummel is looking like he is in trouble.
Blinks is actually very close to falling as well. Do we have the chase? K1 Pro looking to throw the extra damage down. The Withering Fire, the final one, is able to take that down. Trummel is able to barrel hog over the wall. He is going to use his flight ability to get himself to safety, but 4 members of compLexity have fallen.
Cloud9 turning this game around in the late game, and meanwhile the Web Weavers pushing in all 3 lanes. They're going to march down the middle of the map, take out the fort. They're going for the keep, Kubi.
Yes, this team is one, of course, Cloud9 Maelstrom, that is very seasoned. They are a veteran team. They know when they see a great opening to get in and do a lot of damage to the enemy structures. And of course, they're also very seasoned to know when they can go for the throat, take this game.
I think it just came down to they put more damage on the Johanna than they expected, forcing out the Ancestral. Yeah. Then once Illidan was in the battlefield, the heal wasn't there. He was taken out with ease, it seemed. It was just very convincing focus fire out of Cloud9.
Yeah, it was sort of a misjudgment, I would say, for McIntyre on Illidan. I think it was, Avatar was going to be able to stay alive long enough, but that Locust Swarm, time and time again, is able to sort of leech that HP back with that AoE. It was able to keep alive long enough. Once again, Illidan falls, and I don't think this is going to really signal the end of the game. They're probably going to be looking to continue pushing around across the map. We see time and time again this monstrosity is a thorn in the side of compLexity.
But that's the power of Blood for Blood. Anubarak actually used Blood for Blood in conjunction with that Flame Strike of Kael'thas. The burst damage is devastating.
Yeah, Maelstrom has really been putting on a clinic in terms of how to deal with Illidan. I think a lot of the other teams in this tournament could take notes on this, but now we have the Rewind, Polymorph, the Criterize. All of these tools, just on Brightwing alone, are more than enough to really deal with Illidan, as long as the focus fire is there from the rest of the team.
All right, well, that monstrosity will be cleaned up by Trummel, but the rest of the team still in position in the middle lane. That keep down to just a very small amount of health right now.
Okay, and rounding out the rest of the Storm talents for Cloud9 Maelstrom, we do have 2 Bolt of the Storm for Sylvanas and Kael'thas, just for that extra mobility. Of course, on that 40-second cooldown, you can make use of it in quite a few of the fights. We do have the Hardened Shield for Anubarak, and actually the Hive Mind for Avatar, so that will be multiple of those symbiote hats in the fight.
And that's so scary. Once you see 1 Avatar hat, you're like, get that away from me. You see 2, you're like, get that away from me. But the Handler's Blast combo going in with that Wailing Arrow going out as a defense. McIntyre falls very early, 1 for 1. No healers on the side of Cloud9 Maelstrom, but they're pushing in. The health pool of compLexity is so low. We see Ancestral attempted, but it's a little bit too little, too late, and that keep is gonna go down.
More importantly, more than 1 keep, I think, at this point will go down. Of course, Brightwing did fall in that last fight, which I think why they're not really looking to end the game at this point. Still, though, I have to commend K1 Pro on his position. You can see the confidence. He used the Bolt of the Storm forward to make sure that he was able to secure those takedowns. Yes, there is, of course, the Haunted Wave to get himself back, but that takes time to cast, and it's really just saying, we're going in, we're jumping, we need to get as much of an advantage as possible.
Yeah, and Trummel used the overdrive there, but didn't actually have the abilities ready to roll. He had to dash on out. He thought he was going to be able to eliminate K1 Pro, so a nice attempt, but they will just back on out. Now, at this point in time, there are mercenary camps that they could collect. Gem count looking relatively high. They have around 55 on the side of Cloud9 Maelstrom, so that if they get a few more, they will be able to summon the Web Weavers once more.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit tricky for them to collect any more gems at this point, considering how far forward their creep waves are.
Yeah, that's true.
And, that's something that compLexity is going to be able to sort of hold at least that much of the ground. So like we mentioned, not quite enough for Cloud9 to turn in at that point. I think that's why they're not really prioritizing it.
Good point. 25 on the board right now. Bruisers being collected on the right side of the map is just cleanup duty. There is, in fact, an Evolved Monstrosity. They're going to go for those Bruisers of their own and just continue to push those lanes back. Only have lost 1 keep at this point in time. The game is far from over.
So we've seen a lot of burst damage output. I guess sustained range damage from compLexity, especially through the use of that Kael'thas. But some of the level 20 talents that have been grabbed, the Storm talents for compLexity, are going to do a lot to help against that. Johanna does have the Storm Shield. We have an additional Storm Shield on Rhaegar. They don't stack, but you can stagger them back to back, and that is a lot of damage that can be taken out of the fights. Yes, and you just mentioned it, Epic Flight, one of my favorite abilities for Falstad. A very short cooldown, but more importantly, the speed in which he's able to use that fly ability is much, much increased.
Now, Bolt is on cooldown just for a brief moment on Kael'thas. Illidan did force him to use that, so another 30 seconds or so before it's up and ready to roll. So this is kind of a weakened moment out of Cloud9. They want to make sure Kael'thas is perfectly safe, but if they're forced into a team fight, he'll probably go for it. But he needs to be careful here because, oh, it is ready now. Okay.
McIntyre looking to just sort of scare Cloud9 Maelstrom back. And of course, I mean, yes, they have been doing a good job of dealing with Odin, but your team needs to be very much in the right positions to do that. So if he surprises you, that can definitely catch Maelstrom off guard and really start to lead to a snowball team fight.
All right, well, the gems being turned in 47, 57 respectively. Only 3 more needed for Cloud9 Maelstrom. That will give them the opportunity to push on in. Dunktrain, he has the ticket that they need, but do they allow him to put it in?
Okay, and we do see that Anubarak with the symbiote for the time being, just trying to provide that sort of stalling of complexity at this point. A lot of back and forth positionally from both of these teams. They're really looking just for that right positional advantage so that they can start these team fights.
I mean, at this point in the game, it's 7-7 in terms of the takedowns, and losing a single team fight could be lights out. If there's a team fight where you lose 5, 6, 7 heroes, of course there aren't that many on your team, it's going to be bad.
Hey, if you're playing the Vikings, maybe. All right?
Yeah.
Don't
Thanks,
count them
Scooby. All right, well, those 3 gems, they are there. Cattle going to try to go in. He does have the blind, going to eliminate them, but the monstrosity, Gooby, that is currently in the base of Cloud9.
Yeah, something the complexity has to keep an eye on throughout these fights. We see the Phoenix thrown up to continue to zone, yes. And the monstrosity gets stronger every time it witnesses or is nearby any of those creeps that are taken down. So something to keep in mind. It's sort of, gets stronger and stronger as it goes forward. It's just something that complexity will have to send at least 1 hero back to deal with at this point.
They do need a fair number of gems, 18, I believe, if I'm correct. Only the 3, which Dunktrain is sitting on, are required for Cloud9. Constantly using that scouting drone to try to have vision of the enemies, trying to push on in. He's getting close, but Illidan again, stopping him from doing so. Polymorph still readily available. The Haunting Wave, that heal goes down just in time on McIntyre to keep him alive. Caffeine gonna try to get to his ally. Sylvanas, the Haunting Wave does go out, but no, falls. That's an advantage here. 1 hero up in favor of complexity, but their health pools are dropping fast. Blinks very low, running away in his wolf form. Cattlepillar trying to use the Condemn to pull the enemies in. KingCaffeine, though, with that hat, gonna have to run away.
Storm Shield's really doing a lot to keep the remaining members of Complexity up and running, and we do see that constantly McIntyre on the Illidan is looking to provide this chase. We do see the Heroine's Blast only hitting one of the members, and McIntyre looks as though he might have overextended at this point. The silence is good. They are able to take him down.
The blink was used, that Bolt of the Storm, in a way to try to juke, but it did end up forcing Kilthas. His life was forfeit. The turn-in has happened. We see Johanna falling to Anubarak. Only Falsehead with a sliver of life still remains, and all 3 of these waves are being pushed out heavily.
Yes, but only 3 of the members are up for Maelstrom at this point in time. I think they're just going to look to try to poke, put as much pressure on the core as possible.
I don't know if they need to poke. Look at all these catapults. Look at the web weavers. There's 2 of them on the core.
That is a good point. You're right about that.
Here. The damage is massive. It's falling so very quickly.
The catapults, they have stacked up just enough. We do have the promotes as well, and that is going to be a big deal. I didn't think they had enough to push that down, but Maelstrom, again, I brought this up a little bit earlier in the game. They are a very seasoned team. They are veterans to the scene, and they know when they see the advantage, they can go in, go for the throat.
Man, that last fight, though, just a fine dance between both teams. Trades. I mean, the first hero went down on the side of Cloud9 Maelstrom, but Complexity, they bounced back in the fight. They brought it to them, but the Bolt of the Storm from Kael'thas, the fine, just little fancy footwork.
Yes, and of course, Cloud9 Maelstrom does take that 1-0 victory, but Complexity looked like a completely different team than what we saw in their series against Maelstrom yesterday.
I gotta say, I mean, a lot of the commentary there was that Cattlepillar said that they evolved a little bit in terms of their drafting strategy. They know how to play against this team, and it really did show. They had a really nice set of fights early on, a good advantage, but by the end of it, they just couldn't seal the deal. So let's take a look at one of the fights earlier on that helped define that key winning moment there from Cloud9 Maelstrom. So already, level 17, this is a big level fight because at the end of all this, we saw a huge advantage develop. But what happens here is we got the Condemn going in, and it's really going to hit 2, 3, 4 members of Cloud9 up into this top area, and from there it's just like damage and damage and damage. Unfortunately, for Complexity, they kind of had the the squiggly line of death. The Hinterland's Blast didn't quite hit the mark, and that because of that, they didn't really get They didn't really get a lot of value from the Hinterland's Blast. They didn't get the value from the Johanna Condemn, and that's a big combo that you're going to be looking for. So as we advance this replay, you're going to see Cloud9 a little bit more on the defensive, a Great Blessed Shield, that Johanna, and here comes the big Hinterland's Blast. Unfortunately, only hits into the back, but now everything is basically on the cards here. All the cards are on the table here from compLexity. So if you advance a little bit farther in, what do you never do? Well, you probably shouldn't chase a team with a level 16 Kael'thas, because coming up next, as we keep going advancing here, you're going to see a heck of a Flame Strike and so much damage right there. That is it. compLexity cannot chase back into that one. They saw red. They had a good idea of going in for that kill, but they couldn't do it. Kael'thas really showing value there, and not only with 3 takedowns, but the 4th, because Johanna, she cannot fly like that Falstad. But you saw...
Man, if she could.
That would be amazing, yeah. But that fight started at level 17. It ended at 18, and because of the map positioning, we took out forts and we pressured keeps, and that is what really developed a big level lead there from Cloud9 Maelstrom, which eventually clinched them the win.
That's right. If you guys want to show that you have the really precise flame strikes to turn those team fights around, go to heroesofthestorm.com, download and play the game for free. Just launched it earlier this month, and trust me, it is a ton of fun. We could see how exciting some of these games have been.
It's literally devoured my soul because it's all I do with my free time. So you guys should fall into that too.
Jake, you said you're going to lose your voice by the end of this. So far, I think that prediction might come true. A few more of those quality of games. My goodness, you're going to go home with a horse.
I hope so. I love horses.
Free horse. All right. Okay. So, guys, please, we're going to try to get into this next game, of course, in this series. We want to see how this is going to develop out. We are going to go to a quick commercial break so that we can carry on with this series. We'll be back in a few.
On phones. Hearthstone on phones. Now you can do battle wherever you may go. Play it here or anywhere. Just grab a phone and Hearthstone's there. Calling all ye heroes. Hearthstone's on phone.
Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. Stick it in your phone. Rated T for teen.
We will never be slaves, but we will be conquerors. World of Warcraft, Warlords of Draenor. Boost to level 90 instantly. Available now. Rated T for teen. Come out, wherever you are.
Nuclear launch detected.
Heroes of the Storm. Get it free at playheroes.com. Rated T for teen.
Welcome back, everyone. We are going to be hopping into game number 2 between Cloud9 Maelstrom and compLexity to really round out this lower bracket finals. Excuse me. We've had a really exciting day of matches thus far.
That's one way to put it. It's actually just been insanity, and I think everyone just needs to get in here. I'm going to quote as many Hearthstone cards as I can throughout the day, but what a game 1 in this loser finals.
Oh man, like going back and forth with those two teams. They have a lot of confidence going up against each other, but once more, Maelstrom puts the point on the board, and they're going to take the lead in this best of 3. Will history continue repeating itself with a 2-0, and we're going to see a Temple Maelstrom, or is this where compLexity, with their back up against the wall, is finally going to get to shine? And I got to say, Kubi, all this excitement everywhere, it actually kind of did a number on my telestrator, but don't worry, the squiggly lines are back. Don't worry, guys.
Yeah, we had a really good pause at one point. We could see that Hinterland's Blast looks quite squiggly. I see where you get your motivations from drawing those out. A lot of fun, of course. But we can do some quick highlights for some of these players as well. In particular, KingCaffeine for Cloud9 Maelstrom. So let's take a look at that.
All right, well, KingCaffeine, JP Lopez, he is from Walnut Creek. That is very much near the SoCal area, or the NorCal area, if I'm not mistaken. He fenced in the NCAA with a saber. That is the manliest thing I've ever heard.
Man, fencing is just an absolutely insane kind of sport, but at the same time, I mean, Saf French has dual citizenship. He has a lot of gates open to him in this world.
Don't make me say the Hearthstone quotes again. I'm just going to keep doing it.
Okay, so that will show us, you know, at least the warrior player for Cloud9 Maelstrom, but over on the complexity side, we've seen some very, very strong plays time and time again, especially on the Rhaegar with the Ancestral Healing. It is going to be Blinks.
And we talk about this a lot. 17 cats, picks, or it didn't happen.
Yeah, it has to happen. Blinks, if you don't go on Twitter and tweet these cats, then you're probably the most fraudulent human in this tournament, because I need to see these cats.
Oh,
that is a bold statement, sir. I know that you're a fan of the Rhaegar, but geez, you're trying to contest the guy just because he doesn't have any cats. Oh my goodness. But no, for serious, we're going to need to see the picture of those cats. Okay, so we do know that the battleground, at least coming up for this next match, the second match of this lower bracket finals, is going to be Sky Temple. Jake, if you could be so kind as to walk us through what makes this battleground unique.
All right, well, Sky Temple has 3 lanes, like many of the maps here in Heroes of the Storm, but on this battleground in particular, there are 5 mercenary camps. Boss in the middle makes it very dangerous to contest, and the Giants and Bruisers across the map, respectively. If you capture the temples by standing on the point, you will do massive structural damage to your opponents by blasting their fortifications. You can see how quickly they can fall. We saw a match earlier where Mule is one of the bigger resources you can use to contest it, but battling over those temples, that's the name of the game, and team fights, it's generally how we see the drafts go.
Yes, for sure. It is very important to have control over those temples as they spawn up periodically through the Battlegrounds life cycle. But, you know, we're going to have to see how these teams end up, you know, sort of drafting to play out this strategy. But more importantly, I got to ask you guys, that was a very, very close match that we just had in game number 1. What do you guys think, at least in terms of play style, not necessarily what heroes they pick, but how should they sort of, you know, alter their strategies to take down Maelstrom?
Well, Maelstrom has shown itself to be a very resourceful team. Their drafting style is definitely a little bit of a mystery, but as you said, or at least as Cattlepillar said a little bit earlier, you know, they have a little bit more of a handle on it. I think that really showed in game 1, but you know, it is the loser's map choice pick. We're going to Sky Temple. What did we just see from these guys? We saw the Abathur with a little bit of a twist on it.
Right.
I am highly suspecting we're going to try that out against Maelstrom.
The thing is, though, Maelstrom saw that, and I wouldn't be too surprised if they banned that out. So let's find out. Let's hop on over to the draft to see exactly how Cloud9 is going to approach this matchup versus Complexity Gaming.
So what is going to be the strong pick once again? Okay. It's Ben Kerrigan, time and time again. We saw that in the first battleground of this series. It is going to be Illidan thus far. Zeratul, also the next ban for Complexity. Does this open up a Kerrigan pick potentially? I'm always really, really excited to see McIntyre's Kerrigan.
Well, it absolutely does, but I'm not sure it will for Cloud9 Maelstrom. They haven't really seen a lot of Kerrigan play out of them, and as you see, they're going to take a first pick, Sylvanas. It's a big map. You leave her to her own devices. You find yourself minus a gate, a tower, a fort, etc. So, Complexity, will they actually go for this? Could this be a bait from Cloud9 Maelstrom?
No, they're going for it. Okay. They're taking the Kerrigan. They are taking the Kerrigan. It has been very impactful.
Gotta be Jaina.
You think so?
Yeah.
It's a great roaming comp, especially on a map this big.
There it is, of course. So we do see those two together. Of course, the stuns that Kerrigan can provide when roaming around in the neutral space between the lanes, and Jaina as well to provide that damage output, especially early on at level 1. She has a great base kit.
So what do you normally see at this point of the game? Almost exactly this. I was going to say, the Tassadar Johanna has been a very popular second-round pick right before the bans, because normally you wouldn't have an Abathur up here. It would be have to choice between the Azmodan and the Abathur for the bans, and then usually we'll see a Brightwing out there as well. But the Abathur already taken from Maelstrom. They're not going to give Complexity a chance for that mule play.
Yeah, you know what? Abathur really has been the MVP of the last couple games. Let's take a closer look at some of his abilities that are in his kit. What makes him such a unique hero? And of course, it is going to be... Hello, that's Joanna. That's okay. Close enough. But we'll talk a little little bit more about the Avatar, of course, it is going to be because of that symbiote. It is just a really, really strong ability, and it just shows that there's a lot of different ways for you to be able to build Avatar. Of course, being able to push out. We saw that in game number 3 of the match that we just saw previously in the losers or lower bracket semifinals. But there's also, you can build into the symbiotes. There's a lot of flexibility on that hero.
So this is very interesting. There's no Brightwing band going back and forth. compLexity is going to be able to pick up that Brightwing, and that is not a double promote scenario here for Maelstrom. Now, Uther banned out as well. Could we see the Rhaegar? Temple Storm, I know, really likes to run that, but it could actually be the Malfurion as well.
Yeah, Malfurion makes some sense. Of course, he's very powerful in this map. The root, we've seen actually a lot of different builds. We see Elun's Grace getting the additional range on the root. We do see the Ferocious roots as well later on picked up just to have additional control over the battlefield. But like you mentioned, Brightwing Muradin will be the 2 picks for compLexity Gaming.
So this is also, going to be forcing us more or less into the new Barak unless we wanted to see, an Arthas or an ETC. It has been spotted this weekend, and it does look like they're going to take a page out of the Tempo Storm book with that Rhaegar.
Of course, with Brightwing out of the picture, that's, Dunktrain's support of choice, but he will take Rhaegar in this sense. I think it makes a lot of sense. And over on the compLexity side, to round out the composition, we do have, of course, that Brightwing and the Kael'thas.
So this is actually very interesting. There's not a whole lot of just big damage dealers on the side of Cloud9, but this is why I do think that we will likely see the Evolved Monstrosity out of the Avatar in this match, because there's not a whole lot of premier clone targets.
Yes, okay, you're right about that. So that is always going to be a large factor in determining which of those 2 heroics you guys end up going for. And it looks as though we are going to be hopping into game number 2. Really, really excited to get into this because I just can't wait to see which team is going to advance to the grand finals.
All right, guys, well, remember, this is in fact the lower bracket. This is the final life of compLexity. If they fall here, that is the end of the tournament, and Cloud9 Maelstrom currently up 1-0. They have Biceps, Dunktrain, Caffeine, Keiwan Pro, and iDream rounding out their team.
And over on the right side of the map, having a tournament of their life thus far, it is going to be compLexity. We have McIntyre, Hans, Trummel, Cattlepillar, and in the bottom side, there's of course going to be Blinks.
All right, Blink's playing that Brightwing, being a beautiful Queen Butterfly Brightwing. At that moment, we have 4 members sitting there controlling the Watchtower for compLexity. Currently on the side of Cloud9, they're just making sure they scout around their portion of the map. This is a very common theme, looking for the early game party bushes.
Yes, of course, and having this strong early advantage in this map, it's a lot of these teams do rush to this Watchtower, and they want to make sure that they especially have the talent choices at level 1 to make sure that they can, have that control over the Watchtower. The vision's important, especially between these 2 lanes in particular, so that they have control of the space between the first 2 temples that pop up at 1 minute and 30 seconds.
All right, well, we do see that Sylvanas is locking down that bottom tower. We're only 1 minute into this game, and that bottom tower is just at its last leg already. That will give them a small experience boost every time they remove a tower, 400 experience each, and it can really just push you ahead, allowing you to hit level 4 first. Maybe you can take a big team fight because of that. Small advantages.
You know what, while we got a little bit of a quiet moment, Jake, in the beginning of this game, I want everyone to tweet at Tempo Zoya and tell him what a wonderful job he's been doing thus far observing for us in all of these games that we have seen over the course of the weekend.
He's a joyous man. We love him very much. And we do see that those temples are spawning in just about 2 seconds. The first spawn of temples every time in the game of Sky Temple will be the top and middle portion of the map. And we see that compLexity, they have control of the middle, top lane going the way of Cloud9.
I wouldn't be too surprised to see if compLexity wanted to get a bit more aggressive, maybe, especially in the early game. Jaina and Kerrigan alike have very, very strong basic ability kits. Before they even hit level 4, they have a very, very scary potential to aggress on enemy teams. So I would think that they would be looking to take both of the temples, and this is the type of play that I would be expecting to see. It looks as though Dunktrain has overstepped his bounds, but McIntyre has yes as well. Keiwan Pro was able to get that remaining auto attack to be able to take down Kerrigan.
That was an incredibly risky play. He actually went into the face of Kerrigan to throw a totem down, trying to slow her down. Kerrigan said, "I will fight you," and she did.
And it worked out pretty well.
Yeah,
to an extent.
To an extent. 1 for 1. 1 for 1. All right, level 4, 5 just about reached here for both teams. Let's get an update on those talents.
For sure. We do have 2 Envenoms available for compLexity side. That's going to be on Jaina and Kerrigan. Fairly standard picks for those heroes, but does give a very aggressive early game, like we mentioned the potential for. We do have a promote on either side. Of course, it's going to be the standards, Brightwing and Tassadar as well. What are we seeing for the Avatar build? Because this seems to be the hot topic, and it is going to be a symbiote-style Avatar.
Okay, very cool. Symbiote style in the early game is going to be very aggressive with that Anuba rack. Running towards you, of course, has that burrow charge as an escape. We actually saw the power of that, Caffeine getting out of what seemed impossible situations with the Abathur hat, and of course the self-shielding, that carapace of Anuba rack.
Okay, so we have seen some time ago both of these temples had been cleaned up a fair bit, so we're probably going to see the bottom temple, which will be the next one that spawns, probably somewhere around the 430, 445 mark, as they were cleared out fairly quickly. So pay attention to the rotations that these teams make at that point in time. We might see mercenary camps taken on the upper side of the map just to provide a little bit of a distraction, get some more value out of them, or early rotations if you see a majority of the team start to flood down there before the temples happen. It's to gain control of that portion of the map for that time.
Yeah, we see the Giants here in the bottom portion of the battleground. We do have the Bruisers in the top lane. They were just collected by Cloud9 Maelstrom to provide a distraction, likely going to push towards the bottom portion. So here they are going in. We see Rhaegar and Uberak. Do they get aggressive on Jaina and Kerrigan?
Yes, you can see the rotation, the flood of heroes for Cloud9 just zooming in on that area. And I think that we saw the members of complexity sort of sense the danger that was looming again. But we do see that heavy presence in the bottom lane for Maelstrom, and that's because they know that that temple is popping up relatively soon.
Yeah, but right now Cloud9 is sacrificing all the experience in the top lane. Brightwing has been up there this entire time, soaking, and as a result, complexity has taken the experience lead, and that will push ahead as long as they do not soak.
Some important talents that have just popped up. We do see the Shade form. That is an augment to the Haunting Wave. It does give you Cloak after you cast the ability. So that might, if you see Sylvanas happen to cloak up while she's casting that, that's exactly the reason. We do have a Mule once again for Abathur. Let's see what else is popping up. Of course, the Gust of Healing for Brightwing, just for that sustained HP amount. And there was one other thing I wanted to bring up. Yeah, Nubrax seems to be going for the full sustained Beetle style.
Oh, but the Primal Gust connects with iDream. The Hunting Wave not going to be used this time, forcing that aggression out onto McIntyre, getting very low. Dwarf Toss used by Kettle. They force them away, and Cloud9 Maelstrom will just continue to collect the power of this bottom temple.
Yeah, and of course the name of the game is going to be about making sure you get as much structure damage in as possible. We saw how much of an effect that had into the third game of Complexity's match against the sister team Vortex, and how much effect that Mule had. So everything is about this structure damage and trying to mitigate it, trying to put out as much as possible.
All right, bottom four going to end up falling. We see Abathur doing a nice job here in the top lane, making sure that he is soaking that to the best of his ability. Global presence, very powerful on that hero.
Okay, the race to level 10 is on. We do have that bottom fort missing for Complexity's side. A little bit of a boon going towards Maelstrom. They get that slight experience lead, now maybe about a third of a level up, but it's an important level. If they hit that level 10, that gives them a slight timing attack. They could get aggressive and try to make use of those heroic abilities, which are oh so powerful in the team fights.
Yeah, if you can force them into a fight where you have heroics and they do not, it is devastating. Cloud9 Maelstrom has caffeine in that bush for the exact opportunity. We do see the mines expiring in Abathur. They are friendly mines to Cloud9.
Okay, and we just sort of see a little bit of posturing again. The experience has caught up for both sides. It's some nice soaking done for Complexity. They know this is a very critical point, but look at they're just conceding this point.
Yeah.
They started taking the Giants, and all Maelstrom apparently has to do is walk over, and Complexity will concede them over, but it really had to do with the timing of 10. They didn't feel very comfortable. Just a quick burst of a bunch of heroics could turn a fight all around.
All right, let's talk about those heroics. Level 10 for both teams has been reached.
Yes, Cloud9 Maelstrom, of course, they do have the Ancestral Healing. We have the Locust Swarm, the Evolved Monstrosity. Jake, you talked about how important that might be on this map. The Wailing Arrow and the Archon. Over on the Complexity side, we do have Blink Heal once again, Water Elemental, Phoenix. We do have the Avatar for Muradin and the Maelstrom. We don't get to talk about that much because honestly, Kerrigan just seems to get banned out all the time against Complexity.
All right, well, the Monstrosity is being a good distraction up in the top lane versus Brightwing. Bottom lane currently uncontested. There it is. It will get stronger as it eliminates more and more minions, and that Abathur hat, of course, means that Abathur is currently controlling that Monstrosity.
Another big deal that you were mentioning about in terms of why you take Monstrosity over the Ultimate Evolution, part of it has to do with the map size, if you can create a good distraction for it. The other is, do you have a good target to copy? And I think in this case, it does make a lot of sense that they would go Monstrosity for those two reasons.
And Abathur's just going to be all over the place. Might be a very hybrid build like we saw last time here, played by Complexity here on this map. Brightwing going to face shift down. That's going to give a lot of presence here in the middle of the map. The Wailing Arrow does connect with 3 targets, but look at how fast iDream is falling. The Ancestral going down. Caffeine gonna fall as well. This could be a 3-4-0 in favor of Complexity. compLexity, but Dunktrain with that wolf form will manage to escape.
I just love how confident McIntyre is with all of his plays. Kerrigan, an incredibly fragile hero, but you wouldn't know it watching McIntyre play. He just dives in and, of course, makes full use of that assimilation trait that she has. A lot of the damage that she deals comes back to her as shields, and when she's catching multiple, in this case, 3 members in that combo with the Primal Grasp into Impale, she gets so much more sustained and is able to make those confident plays.
Yeah, right now, both of those temples being controlled by the side of compLexity. Cloud9, though, the monstrosity was able to eliminate the top fort. Trummel being pushed back by those minions, and there is, in fact, a mule available. So this, if they force them off these shrines, they could, in fact, keep those forts alive.
Okay, level 13 looming, and it actually just has been reached for compLexity. And you know what? Things are going to start getting better and better, especially considering they have the Kael'thas, which scales nicely past level 16. We saw the power of that in the last game, but there is going to be that flamethrower. We do have the phase shield on Brightwing and sprints for both Jaina and Kerrigan. So you thought that was an aggressive Kerrigan play. We have seen some really awesome Maelstrom plus sprint combinations that have been devastating in the past.
All right, so this is a very unfortunate situation for compLexity. They got the entire duration of that bottom temple, but they did not manage to get the fort. Remember, Mule is there for Abathur, so this can heal up to full. We see the healing has been done in the middle lane. Mule still on cooldown. Next one will likely go to the bottom lane.
Yeah, so far the fights have been looking very strong for compLexity, but we've seen time and time again, especially on Sky Temple, it's pretty important that you're making full use of the objective on the map, taking those mercenary camps, applying the pressure. We see the Siege Giants in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. That is something that compLexity is responding to, but more importantly, it seems as though Maelstrom has been getting more efficiency out of the temples that have been spawning, and also the mule, like you talked about.
Yeah, 3 forts nearly down. All 3, I mean, that middle one is just down to its last leg. Dunktrain stalling out these giants, or the bruisers, excuse me, in the top portion of the map until he sees the opportune moment to go in with that next spawn.
Oh, I see a lot of posturing around the boss. I think they're just sort of rotating through. The boss on this map is also aptly called the Throw Pit. We only see teams are really grabbing it when they know they have a strong advantage because of how accessible it is.
compLexity makes the right response, so they realize the mule is down there. It's going to be a problem. They realize they have a safe opportunity to just jump on there and quickly eliminate the final health points on that fort. Nicely done. That's the first fort this game on their side.
Okay, yes, and just the one actually remaining now for both teams, so they have caught up quite a bit in that structural advantage with the monstrosity continuing to be a pain in this top lane. Trummel is sort of sent on monstrosity cleanup duty.
Look at the timing. They have the monstrosity with the mercenary camp, and this is going to give them freedom to push into the middle of the map. That fort from the dagger and, of course, the side storm of Tacet are going to be enough.
As quickly as they had evened things up, Maelstrom bounces back and says, no, we're taking the structure lead at this point, and we're going to continue firing away. You know, I got to say, though, the experience is quite even. So the takedowns are showing one thing, you know, Maelstrom with the structure lead. Overall, this game is very dead even.
It is for sure, but when it comes to temple control, Cloud9 is making it work out for them. Having that mule has paid dividends at this point in the game, and they are postured for the bottom one, but Cloud9, they're going to be contested by compLexity.
Yeah, but always got to consider that Abathur is going to have that presence in the top lane. I think we are going to see a large team fight brewing in the bottom side of the map over control of this temple.
All right, well, Tacet, Sylvanas, they're waiting in the backline. iDream showing himself right now. The damage going up onto Trummel. Sprint has been used, and she's going to be able to get out of harm's way. A beautiful Phoenix goes out to zone out the entire team, but look at Tacet. Well, so hard to lock down.
Got to look at that level advantage, though. 116 hits, that might be the trigger for compLexity to jump in. I think they're expecting that they will have it. We see that Cattlepillar is looking to get aggressive. They are passing through the Shroud. And actually, level 16 will be hit for both teams. I mean, Maelstrom first.
Yeah, they're just pushing them back. That level 16 talent's being picked up by both teams, but Kettle forced to use the Avatar in the backline, but this gives McIntyre an opportunity to go to iDream. We see that hat from Abathur is making a massive difference. The Burrow Charge gonna help secure that takedown. Dunktrain just barely keeping himself standing with that Ancestral healing, but it's not gonna be as lucky for the player Brightwing on the other side.
Wow, amazing plays from Dunktrain there. He was able to get the Ancestral healing off on himself, and he was able to keep a new Barak alive. Unfortunately, not himself ultimately in the end of things, but I think they will take the trade happily. If it's a 4-5 for one hit at this point, Maelstrom all of a sudden taking a huge advantage in this game.
That was just massive. Beautiful plays. We saw Caffeine. He just knows exactly his limits. Once he gets very low, backs on out, goes into a weird position that they don't want to commit to. Comes back on out. Burrow Charge connecting, helping them pick up those final takedowns. 4 for 1, 5 for 1?
Yep. All the while, Monstrosity pushing in the top lane
Oh, man.
that we just saw. These temples wailing away. I think we are going to see some keeps very likely taken down in the next couple minutes for Cloud9 Maelstrom. They're looking very poised in a very strong position.
Yeah, right now, I mean, everything is looking great in their favor, but the game is far from over. The Monstrosity will be cleaned up, and they are now respawning. Kel'Thas, Muradin, both back in action, and they are going to make their way to that top lane because the longer they wait, the closer Cloud9 gets to those Storm Talons.
It looks as though they're going to try to contest this top temple. I think that if they stay on it, Maelstrom might be able to get very, very close to taking a keep. If not, then they will be looking to get aggressive so that that mule won't be able to get as much value.
While the Archon has gone down, we see a beautiful Impale, body blocks, and a massive Wailing Arrow hitting 4 members of compLexity Gaming. Burrow Charge securing 2 more takedowns, and that is going to be a 3, possibly 4, for nothing. That's going to be the Feral Lunge coming out of Rhaegar, picking up yet another takedown. Haunting Wave aggressively is trying to chase Trummel. Sprint is going to leave her the 1 member standing, but that keep, you said 2 minutes, that's about 60 seconds. It's going down.
Yeah, I'd say so. Wow, was that not the greatest Wailing Arrow you have ever seen? Props to iDream at this point, but whoa, hold on a second. All of a sudden, yeah, we only have 15 seconds before remaining members of compLexity are back up. That is a full team wipe at this point. A 3-level advantage. They're quickly taking this core down. Do they have enough time?
It looks like it. Kel'Thas spawning in 2 seconds. He's going to give it everything he has. He does have level 16, so he's going to hit like a truck, but look at the self-sustain. The beetles coming out. The minions have reached the core here. Phoenix goes down. The damage, 18, 15%, 10%. The core is going to fall, and Cloud9 Maelstrom will advance to the finals to rematch against Tempo Storm here in the June North America Open.